My name is Cassidy Marlowe, and I'm 31 years old. Last Thanksgiving, my father stood up in front of 28 relatives, pointed his finger at me across the dining room, and told me to sit down and stay in my lane because I had the audacity to ask about my grandmother's will. The room went quiet for half a second. Then people started laughing. My face went so hot I could feel it in my ears, but I looked straight at him and said 2 words, "All right." Then I set my napkin on the table and walked upstairs. The next morning he knocked on my door with that knock. Sharp, impatient, already winning before anyone answered. "Cassidy, time to apologize." The room was empty. Bed made. Closet bare. Nothing left except my grandmother's photograph, face down on the nightstand. By the time he got downstairs, the doorbell was already ringing. And the woman standing on that porch changed everything. But before I tell you who she was and what she was holding, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been made to feel small by the very people who were supposed to make you feel seen? Drop a comment and tell me where you're listening from. I read every single one. Let me take you back to the Tuesday morning in October when my grandmother died and the first domino fell. Her name was Loretta Jean Marlowe. She was 84 years old, and she passed quietly at Emory University Hospital in Atlanta just before 7 a.m. I got the call from my mother while I was sitting at my kitchen table in Decatur, drinking coffee I'd made too strong, sketching out a floral installation for a client's wedding. My mother's voice was barely there. "It's Mama, Cass. She's gone." I drove to the hospital in the rain. No music, just Atlanta traffic and my own breathing. When I arrived, my father was already in the corridor. Frank Marlowe, 61, retired civil court judge, 6 feet tall in the kind of pressed khakis that announce themselves. He wasn't crying. He was on his phone speaking to someone in a low, controlled voice about something called a probate timeline. He ended the call when he saw me and didn't say hello. My brother Davis stood beside him. 35, dark blazer, even at the hospital. Arm looped through Dad's like a campaign photo. I stood at the far end of the hallway with a paper cup of bad coffee I never drank. The last time I'd seen Grandma Loretta, she was in her wicker chair on the back porch in Roswell, holding my hand with a grip that surprised me. Her voice dropped low, the way it did when she didn't want Frank to hear. "Cassidy, I've taken care of things. You trust me, don't you?" I nodded. I didn't understand yet. At the funeral, my father gave the eulogy. He spoke for 12 minutes about legacy and responsibility and how the Marlowe name would carry forward through his son. He said Davis's name 4 times. He said my mother's name once. He did not say mine at all. Afterward, in the receiving line, a woman I didn't recognize found me near the door. Maybe 60, silver hair cut close. Charcoal blazer and small gold earrings. She took my hand firmly and said quietly, "Your grandmother talked about you constantly. I'll be in touch." She was gone before I could ask her name. I didn't know it then, but that woman was Patricia Holden, and she was holding the key to everything. That evening, 15 of us gathered at the family home in Roswell. The white farmhouse Grandma Loretta had built with her own inheritance money. Deep porches, a magnolia in the front yard so old it had its own mythology. A vegetable garden out back where she grew tomatoes and dahlias side by side because, she said, beauty and usefulness weren't enemies. My father raised his glass at the head of the table. "Mama left her affairs to me to manage. I'll make sure her assets go where they're most needed, to the people in a position to use them wisely." His eyes found mine. "That means you don't need to stress about any of it, Cassidy. You're still figuring out your path. We all know that." I set my fork down. "Dad, Grandma told me Mama was confused at the end," he said, cutting across me. "Whatever she thought she promised doesn't hold up legally. Let it go." My mother stared at her plate. She didn't look up. She never looked up. After dinner, I went upstairs to the bedroom I'd grown up in. Out of old habit, I opened the nightstand drawer. There was an envelope inside that hadn't been there before. Cream stationery. My name on the front in my grandmother's handwriting, shaky but deliberate, like she'd pressed hard enough to make the words permanent. Inside, a letter and a partial photocopy of something with the words Irrevocable Trust Agreement across the top. Highlighted in yellow, halfway down the first page. Beneficiary, Cassidy Ann Marlowe. My hands were shaking when I read the letter. Cassidy, if you're reading this, then I'm gone, and Frank is already doing what I always knew he would. I'm sorry I couldn't stop him while I was alive. Men like your father only hear documents. The original trust is with my attorney, Patricia Holden. Her office is in Midtown on Peachtree Street. The copy I've left you is partial. Not enough to prove anything alone, but enough for you to know I'm telling the truth. Don't show anyone. Not Frank, not Davis, not even your mother. Wait for the right time. Patricia will know what to do. You are my wild, beautiful, stubborn girl, and you always were worth more than they let you believe. All my love always, Grandma. I pressed that letter against my chest and sat in the dark for a long time. 3 weeks later, I got a forwarded email, sent to me by Davis by accident. The subject line read, Ray, Trust Amendment Draft Petition. 7 messages, back and forth between my brother and my father. Davis had drafted a legal petition to the probate court requesting a change of beneficiary. The grounds, financial instability and poor judgment of the named heir. He cited my student debt, my inconsistent career path, my lack of property as evidence I was unfit to receive a significant inheritance. But the line that made my vision go white wasn't the legal language. It was a message Davis had typed at the bottom of the chain, casual as a grocery list. She won't push back, Dad. She never does. That's the whole point. I screenshot every message, backed it up twice. Then I called my mother. Tell Dad I'll be there for Thanksgiving. I was going back, but not to make peace. The next morning, I called Patricia Holden's office. The receptionist put me on hold for exactly 12 seconds. Then, Miss Marlowe, Miss Holden has been expecting you. Can you come in this week? 2 days later, I was sitting across from her at a clean desk on the 14th floor of a Midtown building, the Atlanta skyline gray and low behind her. Patricia Holden was the woman from the funeral. Composed, precise, the kind of person who has seen everything and let none of it rattle her. Your grandmother hired me 11 years ago, she said. 7 years ago, she came back and asked me to establish an irrevocable trust with you as sole beneficiary. She said, and I'm quoting her directly, Frank will try to undo it. Make sure he can't. She slid the original document across the desk. $575,000. Managed by First National Bank of Georgia. Notary seal. Loretta's signature in blue ink, steady and certain. Irrevocable means the trustee cannot alter the beneficiary without your written consent or a court ruling of mental incapacity at the time of signing, Patricia said. Your grandmother had her physician conduct a cognitive evaluation that same week. She was in the 91st percentile for her age group. The results are on file. I exhaled. It was the first real breath I'd taken in a month. There's more. Patricia opened a second folder. Your father filed his petition 4 weeks ago. He told the court he was unable to locate you. She looked at me steadily. He has your phone number. He has your address. You were sleeping in his house at Thanksgiving last year. I showed her the email chain. She read it without expression. Then looked up. This is evidence of fraudulent misrepresentation to a probate court and potential breach of fiduciary duty. If you want to pursue this, you have more than enough. I want to pursue it. She nodded. Then, almost gently, there's one more thing. Your grandmother also left you the lake house in Blue Ridge. I went still. The little cedar cabin on the lake where Grandma Loretta took me every summer. Where we'd sit on the dock at dusk watching the mountains go purple, and she'd tell me I was built for something nobody in our family had thought to name yet. She left it to me. Thanksgiving, I said. He's invited the whole family, 28 people. Patricia studied me for a moment, then she gave one slow nod. The Wednesday before Thanksgiving, I drove north through Georgia with one bag, my camel coat from a consignment shop on Highland Avenue, and a manila folder thick with notarized copies. The originals stayed with Patricia. The Marlowe farmhouse came into view through the pine trees the way it always did. White clapboard, wide porch, the magnolia standing guard. From the outside, the picture of a solid Southern family. That night my father barely acknowledged me. Davis made a comment about my car. Brenly smiled her performing smile. I smiled back and said nothing. I went upstairs, slid the manila folder under the mattress, and stood at the window looking out at the vegetable garden, brown and overgrown. Nobody had tended it since Grandma got too sick to kneel. I pressed my palm against the cold glass. I'm here, Grandma. Thanksgiving morning the house filled like a theater before a show. By noon, 28 relatives occupied every room. My father moved through it all like he was hosting a verdict. I was seated at the folding table, the overflow table. Between my 9-year-old second cousin Ren and an empty chair. At 4 o'clock, my father stood at the head of the main table beneath the crystal chandelier and raised his glass. This Thanksgiving, we remember Mama, and we celebrate the man who's going to carry this family's future. My son Davis, who just made junior partner. Applause. Davis accepted it with a practiced half-smile. From the folding table, my Aunt Roberta called out, "What about Cassidy? Anything exciting, honey?" I opened my mouth. "Cassidy's still finding her footing," my father said, not looking at me. "She does beautiful work. Flowers and things. We're proud of her in our own way." Every family needs someone to remind the rest of us to stop and smell the roses. Right, Cass? Laughter, warm and easy and at my expense. Ren, 9 years old, looked up at me with wide eyes. "Are you okay?" she whispered. I handed her a roll and nodded. After the pie was half gone and the bourbon was flowing, my father stood again. "Tomorrow morning I'll be sharing Mama's final wishes regarding her estate. I want everyone present." He looked directly at me when he said it. His smile had an edge in it. That night I did the dishes alone. Davis came to lean in the kitchen doorway, wine glass dangling from 2 fingers. "You know, Cass, you really should just let Dad handle this. It's complicated." "You don't have the background for it." I kept scrubbing the roasting pan. Something in me that had been held under tension for 31 years finally went taut and stopped trembling. "Davis," I said quietly, "do you know what Grandma actually left me?" The silence behind me changed. I looked over my shoulder. His face had gone very still. He left the kitchen without a word. 10 minutes later, my father's voice boomed from the living room. "Cassidy, get in here." I dried my hands and walked in. 28 faces turned toward me. My father stood in the center of the room, pointing like I was on the witness stand. "What did you say to your brother?" His courtroom voice, the one built for closing arguments. "You threatened him with the will. You think you can manipulate this family." I started to answer. "Go to your room," he said. "You're grounded until you apologize to your brother." 28 adults. And the room laughed, not all of them, but enough. Aunt Roberta covered her mouth, shoulders shaking. Uncle Pete snorted. Brenly let out a delicate little gasp that was really a giggle. My mother sat in the corner chair staring at her hands. I held my father's gaze for 3 full seconds. Then I said, in a voice so calm it surprised even me, "All right." I turned and walked upstairs. Closed the bedroom door, picked up my phone. Patricia Holden answered on the second ring. "Miss Holden," I said, "can you be there at 9 tomorrow morning with the originals?" A pause. "I'll be there at 8:30. I set my alarm for 4 a.m. and sat in the dark, listening to the laughter still floating up through the floorboards. Enjoy it, I thought. It's the last time. I left at 4:20 in the morning. No drama. Just my bag, my folder, and my socks on the stairs so the boards wouldn't creak. I left Grandma's photograph face down on the nightstand. The only punctuation I needed. I drove to a Waffle House 12 minutes from the house, ordered coffee, and waited for daylight. Inside the house, my father came downstairs at 7:30 in a pressed shirt, poured his coffee, and said, "Someone go get Cassidy." Nobody moved. He went himself, knocked twice, sharp, expecting compliance. Opened the door. Empty, bed made, closet bare, grandmother's photograph face down. He stood in that doorway, my cousin Marcus told me later, for a full 10 seconds. Then he came downstairs, voice flat. Cassidy left. Ran off like a coward. Davis smiled. "Well, that settles it. It does," my father said. "I'll make the estate announcement now," since the doorbell rang. My mother opened the door. Patricia Holden stood on the porch in a charcoal blazer, leather briefcase, expression like the weather before a storm. My name is Patricia Holden. I'm the attorney of record for Loretta Jean Marlowe's estate. I need to speak with this family right now. What happened in the next 43 minutes is something nobody at that table has ever recovered from. Patricia walked into the Marlowe dining room the way she must walk into every room, unhurried, certain. Carrying the weight of everything she knew and holding it without flinching. My father rose to his full height. Patricia, you weren't invited. Loretta Marlowe built this house with her family's money, Patricia said. And I'm here because I have a fiduciary obligation to her trust's sole beneficiary. Cassidy is the sole named beneficiary of an irrevocable trust executed 7 years ago. You are aware of this, Mr. Marlowe. You have been since the day your mother signed it. The room went completely still. Your father's jaw tightened. My mother was in decline. Her physician conducted a cognitive evaluation the week of signing, Patricia said. She was in the 91st percentile for her age group. She slid the original document across the table. Cream paper, notary seal, Loretta's signature in blue ink, steady and certain. Would you like me to read it aloud? Aunt Roberta leaned forward. Uncle Pete put down his coffee. My father looked at that document the way you look at something you realize is loaded. Get out of my house, he said quietly. Patricia didn't move. You filed a petition with the probate court 4 weeks ago, she said, claiming you were unable to locate the trust's beneficiary. The beneficiary who slept in this house last Thanksgiving. She pulled out the email chain and read aloud. She won't push back, Dad. She never does. The room turned to Davis in silence. Davis opened his mouth, closed it. His face had gone the color of old ash. Patricia laid out everything. The $575,000 trust, the lake house in Blue Ridge. The fraudulent misrepresentation to the probate court. The emails, the timestamps, the bar records, every piece of it clean and documented and irrefutable. My father exploded. His voice filled the room. Davis, stop this. There has to be a way. Davis stared at the table. There isn't, Dad, it's irrevocable. We can't change it. He said it quietly. Like the air going out of something. We never wanted you to know, Davis said. We didn't think you'd fight back. Aunt Roberta's voice came from across the table. Loretta told me this would happen. She told me years ago. Aunt Vera nodded. She told me too. My father had nothing left to say. He walked to his study and closed the door. He did not come back out. The next morning, Patricia officially removed my father as trustee and reported Davis to the Georgia State Bar. Faced with documented evidence, there was nothing to contest. The trust transferred to me, the lake house transferred to me, every dollar my grandmother had set aside and protected transferred to me. Davis lost clients. His law license was suspended pending investigation. My father called me to say I had ruined the family. It was the last conversation we ever had. A week later, I drove up to Blue Ridge alone. The cedar cabin sat at the edge of the lake exactly as I remembered it. I walked through every room and found photographs on the shelves, the two of us on the dock, summer after summer. And on the kitchen table, a letter in my grandmother's handwriting. She wrote that she had always believed in me. That she had watched the way they treated me for years and refused to let them have the last word. That she wanted me to have a place that was entirely mine. Somewhere I could stand still and know I belonged. For the first time in months, I cried, not from humiliation, not from anger, from relief. I sent one email to the family. I would no longer be available for relationships that did not include mutual respect. I wished everyone well and meant it. My mother called. She apologized. Not a careful apology, not a diplomatic one, a real one. She said she should have stood beside me a long time ago and that she was standing beside me now. I kept her letter next to Grandma's. 6 months later, my student loans were gone. I opened a small floral studio in my grandmother's name. I restored the vegetable garden at the farmhouse, tomatoes and dahlias side by side, the way she always planted them, because she was right. Beauty and usefulness were never enemies. My father continued to tell people he was the victim. I stopped explaining myself to anyone who believed him. I still go to the cabin whenever I need to remember who I am. I sit on the dock at dusk and watch the mountains go purple, and I think about a woman who knew exactly what she was doing when she called a lawyer 11 years before she died and said, "Frank will try to undo it." Make sure he can't. She made sure. And the rest of it, the studio, the garden, the life I'm building on ground nobody can pull out from under me, that part is mine.